Test, test. Wendy,
Can you hear me?
can you? Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. You doing
Cool.
okay today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Sorry it took a second. I had to switch headphones out. I have no idea what I do with my other ones, but improvising. So we're good to go.
Making it work. I love it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I love
So first things first, happy belated Thanksgiving and happy
thank
holidays.
thank you. I
Glad
spent Thanksgiving in Paris. It was wonderful.
I saw that. That is awesome. What was a special occasion or anything?
Vacation. I just really needed it badly. I was supposed to go to Morocco for 3 weeks in September, and the week before I was getting ready to leave, the week before I was supposed to go, the State Department issued a list of 5 countries that you shouldn't visit because COVID was too bad, and Morocco was one of those 5. So I had to make a decision. Do I go and take the risk? I've got so many people that depend on me. It just didn't, I couldn't justify it. It didn't make sense. So
Have you been there, or was
I
this like a?
be my first time. And
Okay.
my plan was to go all over the whole country. I was flying into Marrakesh and out of Casablanca, and I've been looking forward to it for like a year. And it was really a tough call because I just really wanted to go, but I couldn't justify it. So I said, okay, I'll wait till Thanksgiving and I'll go to Paris for a week.
Yeah, it's interesting. All these alternative routes you got to figure out now, right?
Yeah,
Makes life a little bit more interesting. You got to improvise,
it does. I'll get there. I'll get there.
spontaneous, spontaneous. So jumping into it, I got a bunch of topics I want to go through, and we can keep these initial ones brief. I just want to start with a little bit of like pop culture, stuff that's happened in the year, and just give your 2 cents. You don't have to go into too much detail at the beginning here.
Okay.
So just quick thoughts overall, your opinions. Astroworld, who's gonna suffer the most? Live Nation?
Yeah, I mean they've got insurance, so probably the insurance company will suffer the most. Definitely not the artists. Um, it's going to change rules at concerts. It's going to make it a little more difficult to get in. Sort of like when the 19 pilots hit the World Trade Center, it changed everything about airports, right? So I think Astroworld's going to change everything about concerts.
Only because I think historically, it's never happened like this. You know what I mean? Not to this extent, and there's been way crazier things. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. There was a thing when I first started being a fan of hip hop. In fact, I think it's a Public Enemy song called Bum Rush the Show.
Mm.
That used to happen all the time where fans would rush the gate to get in. So it's not a new method of gaining access to a show, but it will change. It will
My
change.
only my only thing that I really would want to say about this, and I was gonna make a video, but it's not really worth it, is like if this was intentional, the artist would have to really gain something from it. That's all I have to say. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
He gained nothing. In fact, he took a hit. He lost some of his biggest sponsors.
Yeah. Um, Also, do you think the Kanye Drake beef is the best thing that happened this year?
No.
Ooh, okay. Then what is the best thing that happened?
Um, I'm more excited about them releasing albums this year. Um, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about like what the best thing of the year was. Um,
Or the best thing for music?
I think the best thing for music was EFTs,
Ooh,
NFTs, excuse me.
NFTs. NFTs.
Yeah.
Very interesting. That's another. We'll get into that a little bit later, but that's good. Okay.
Yeah, because it makes money for the artist, whereas the Kanye Drake beef, it's attention seeking. It's not.
That is an interesting statement because you know what? I'll jump into this real while we're on the topic. How the artists who are giving back more to their own fan base in every sense, whether it's knowledge or helping them gain money or like just educating them in general, in any sense, any aspect, financially, like you just feed them more than ever is the new way to gain and hold your fan base. Like there has to be some incentive now, like more than ever. Do you know what I mean?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. because I am noticing personally what it takes for me to become a super fan of somebody. And on top of that, I often ask people, I'm like, do you ever notice how much you might listen to an artist and you don't even follow them on social media? You don't even like their post, and I have their song on repeat like every day of the week. It's so interesting how that works. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
once I become consciously aware of it, I go out of my way to be like, let me go drop an emoji because I just want this person, because
Right.
that's what I would want. Just drop an emoji and like that's it. That's it. Be on your way. Engagement. Help the engagement. Thank you for the algorithm. But
Show support. Show some sort of love.
yeah, yeah,
Share with a friend.
yeah. Like, because if you're aware of it, go do something about it. You
Right.
know. Okay. Next topic. Thinking how society has changed, music industry 2022, and like how how many states are going to benefit from this, more so the open ones, for example. Do you know what I mean? So do you think people should be taking like advantage of this time in that aspect? And like what personally would you be telling your own clients on like, hey, there's money over there and you don't
Tour. Yeah, I'm telling my clients now to tour because people are so fed up of COVID and having to stay inside that there's a shift coming. People really want to be out and doing more. I'm a little spoiled, Joe. I'm in Georgia, and we were closed from like the end of March until the end of May. But we opened back up. The strip clubs opened back up around Memorial Day of 2020.
I'm laughing because you think you're spoiled. I'm in Texas. We didn't close.
Same. You have the same life. You have the same. Okay, so
Yeah.
I get it.
And I'm an introvert, so
Yes, I am as well. I loved COVID. Well, I didn't love COVID.
oh my
I
God.
loved being in my house. I loved. I'm gonna
Headline. There's the headline for today's
headline.
Wendy loved COVID headline.
Yeah. I loved being in my house because I'm an introvert. But having said that, like I was back up and in my office in July
Hmm.
of 2020. And we were back at work July of 2020. So my clients have been making money since. They were really only quiet for a couple months, and the really young ones never shut down because they felt like it couldn't affect them.
I'll transition since we're kind of on that topic and go
Hmm.
to that question immediately. But I was watching Rick Rubin in the Andre 3000 interview. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
Pretty
Mm-mm.
good little podcast, but it was so insightful because it really made me like kind of emotional. Okay, it really made me emotional just realizing all the things that I needed to be doing and hearing it in the most basic blueprinted way. Like it's like, you know what it was? It's like reconfirming all your thoughts and suspicions and then being like, "Oh, you actually have to go do all those things you didn't want to do." You know
Right.
what I mean? That's what it
Right.
was like. And I was like, "Man, like I just had to hear it like in the most blatant form from someone you looked up to realize, "Hey, actually, no one's gonna book you. You gotta go throw your own shows and gotta go sell out your own shit and then make
Yeah.
other people care about it." And it's like so realistic of an
It's so
expectation.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just wow. Like it's just very genuine of a way to come up that you can hear somebody and how it really humanized Andre because he
Hmm.
thinks of the same things like that I do, and I'm nobody. Do you know what I mean?
I love that.
I love it. Like yeah.
And I think we also have to pay attention to monetizing. Like we're all so caught up with TikTok and Instagram, but we're not really making money from TikTok and Instagram. We've got to do things that are going to bring money into your franchise, into your brand.
Which is another good question. I truly believe that those golden days of TikTok really just being like genuine, easy to blow, that's kind of behind us. And it takes a lot more than just you need an idea, a concept, a genuine
Yeah.
outline, a plan. It wasn't like that. There was a time everything was just going.
Right.
And now another thing is like it's like the radio because it's so oversaturated in
So
the sense in this but look in the sense that it doesn't matter what the video is, the
no,
song goes over everything. And I'm look, it took me 2 years for the algorithm to figure me out to where it knows my humor because
right,
I'm conscious enough to be like, all right, 2 videos, I'm laughing, I'm out, get me out of this world. Do you know what I mean? Because
right.
I know too many people that spend hours being sucked into this vacuum. It's a real thing.
You know,
But
I noticed I noticed that my engagement, not just my own personal engagement on Instagram, but the engagement of my clients really reduced in September, October. I'm not quite sure when, but I noticed that like likes and engagement has dropped by like 75%, like a
100,
lot. So
100%.
all of my clients have now jumped from Instagram to TikTok because they're getting more traction. They're getting a better gain there.
It's very true.
And I'm wondering twofold. One, how is this going to affect TikTok? Because now there's an influx of Instagram folks. And
Here,
how's that going to affect Instagram? Because Instagram as a company, they have to see this. Like they have to see from their dashboard all of these people jumping ship and going to TikTok. They have to see their numbers declining. I'm wondering what
so
they're going to do.
interesting. Facebook launches and they're trying to take gaming serious, not working out. Google's gaming failed, Stadia. The other thing is, yeah, completely understand that because no matter what I was doing and experimenting and testing, I could get no consistency and know what was working. And it was like, honestly, very discouraging. But the thing is, this is like the year I've made more off of Instagram than actual music. So
Mm,
I'm still incentivized as an artist to figure out my content, and my other friends are like getting paid based on how many views they get on reels. You get paid based
right,
on how many stories, and yeah, it's crazy. Like
right.
it's very interesting that they can incentivize you to use and stay on it.
Hmm.
But I totally understand you. It's like, hey, you're gonna have to come up with something else to like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Next topic. Do you think you're more driven by discovering great music or like the innovative potential of like the next discovery? Like the next person you find can be the next something. Do you know what I mean?
What a great question. For me personally, I'm incentivized because I'm a workaholic, so I'm all about business all the time. For me, I'm incentivized by where is this going? Um, what are the fans gravitating towards? What sound is coming next? That's what drives me. I'm not driven as a fan the way I once was because it's
Do
a
you think
business.
do you think you made more emotional decisions at that time?
That's a great question. Um, I don't know. That's a really good question. I know that my focus is on what the fans like, what the masses like more so than what I like.
Ooh,
And I've also found that I'm listening to NPR more than I'm
hmm,
listening to music.
interesting.
Yes. I don't know if that's an age thing where I'm caring more about what's going on in the world and interesting stories than I am music. But I've also noticed that I'm really watching what the mass of people are listening
Gravitating.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even want to. I'd rather tell
And
you off air what I listen to nowadays. I don't think you'd believe it. But I just like that's so personal to me. What I listen to is just such like a secret weapon to me. Do you know what I mean?
same.
Um, the similarities of like the megastars. I remember you talking about this with Beehive, and I was like super like, okay, okay, need a question from that. I needed one from that, and it made me think. Tupac and Eminem were never like marketing or branding gurus of their time, of their era. They were not.
No, they
So
more
our
well
authenticity?
different. Finish. Let me let you finish your thought.
No, that was pretty much it. Is it authenticity?
Um, M cared about being the greatest rapper ever. He cared about that. Tupac didn't. Tupac's measuring tool was sales. Eminem wouldn't have cared if he sold 3 copies or 3 billion copies. He was about putting words together and being the dopest rapper. Pac didn't care about being the dopest rapper. He cared about outselling. Like when there was the whole East Coast West Coast battle, whatever going on, he was always taunting Biggie by saying, "It's not about how dope you are, how many units have you sold?" Because he was outselling Biggie, and
Yeah.
is his
Ridiculously too. Like I know the numbers. The numbers
yes,
were ridiculous. I
but
love it.
Biggie was more from the Eminem camp saying, okay, but how dope are you? Like, do people put you in the top 5 of all time like they do me? You know,
And Biggie had all the features. I just want to say that.
yeah, yeah,
I love it. I love
yeah.
it. Okay, but does this go to talk and like show for Tupac being so influential like in his community? Because this is my real question. He was the guy that was saying, listen to the music, listen to what we're saying and the struggle we're going through. Like we're telling y'all is right there, just listen.
Yep. We're the
But
CNN hood.
for sure. And I don't know. Is that the difference of like influence, really? Is there really no comparison for that reason?
Well, influence today is just different. Like, influence today is all about consumerism and products. Like, when you see an influencer on
But
in
here's where I get conflicted. If hip hop was like originating where Biggie is from, but Tupac came with the message of like you would rather stand on this is what hip hop was born, where Tupac comes from. You know what
yeah,
I mean? So
that's
that's where I'm.
Pac and not Biggie, because Pac had an agenda to help people. Biggie was all about popping bottles and getting his dick sucked.
You got storytelling ability a little bit.
But he
The
wasn't
flow.
the world.
You're right.
He was
You're
trying
right.
to buy Gucci sweaters and Gucci
I'm
loafers.
trying to play devil's advocate now. You're right. But that's always been kind of East Coast rap, right?
KRS-One, Tribe Called Quest. No,
Mm,
there were people that gave a shit. Public Enemy. It's just that times change, and that's what I was starting to say about influence. Like, Pac, Pac's influence was Brenda Has a Baby, Dear Mama, and he had other shit too. I'm not saying he was just Mr. Positive, but I feel like influencers today are trying to sell products.
so
It's there to get us to, wear the new Kim Kardashian slim fit or whatever it's called.
would it be more safe to say that East Coast's time was more when it was that kind of subject matter then?
Um, I don't know that I would say that, because it's topics go in and out of fad.
Okay, that's
You
a
know,
good answer actually.
like, it was very fashionable pre-COVID to talk about opioids and taking Percocet. I don't hear a lot of rappers talking.
To
I know.
to bring that full circle, do you feel music coming back in that sense? Like to that?
I see it being more celebratory. I think people want to party now. They're coming out of COVID. They've, unless you live in 2 states or 3 states, you got stuck in the house for a couple of years. I think people want to go to clubs and have a good time again. I think they want to come out of the house and be around other people again.
Last question about Tupac. What does it mean about for an artist of that time period to be saying that they never sold their soul? It means something different now, I feel.
Yes. Um, and that's what it meant. He didn't use his music to to sell products. He used his music to try and change the world. Not every song. I don't want to imply that, California Dreamin' was anything but a party song or a club song, but he wanted to use his power for good. Like, I wrote the business plan for euthanasia, and we were shopping a deal for him when he passed. And in that business plan were community centers and childcare facilities, for everyday people.
Wow.
That was what drove him. He wasn't trying to just own 12 different Bentleys in 12 different colors. Not to say that that's wrong or right. It's just that's what attracted me to him, was his love for humanity and his need to change the world.
On another topic, Garyvee, you know who he is.
Love him.
In your opinion, who is like what is he a great example of to you?
Oh, my first thought was inspiration. Like, when you first asked that question, inspiration, motivation jumped into my head. I think he's really a marketing and branding genius, but what he's great for with me is motivation. Like when I watch Garyvee, I get my energy back.
Yeah. And I do like that his gimmick is kind of like, I'm here until you don't need me anymore. And then you can always come back to him. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
And he's always knowledgeable on any topic. It's like you can type his name
yes,
in followed by anything, and it's like he's got a segment.
yes. And he's knowledgeable.
Yeah.
He's not out here giving like wrong information.
We can actually jump from that to NFTs now because he's the reason I feel like he kind of got me onto that. Would you say the same a little bit?
No, no. NFTs came to me because I'm a geek and I
Mhm.
watch what the tech world's doing.
Yeah.
So I watched the little apes, the little cartoon apes,
Mhm.
and I was fascinated that people were spending so much money. I call them the tech bros, that the tech bros were spending so much money on animated apes. And I wondered where it was going to go next. And then I watched Universal Records do a record deal for, four of them. So I'm like, oh, what's this now? Like what's coming, what's coming down that lane. NFTs were just, I was fascinated by them because it's sort of like the wild wild west. We don't have any copyright laws that cover them yet, and I'm anxious to see where they're going. And Joe, I'm part of a Lyricist Lounge, which was a showcase back in the 90s. I was on their board of advisors, and Anthony Marshall called me about a year ago and said, "Hey, we're getting together this this conference call every Friday morning to talk about NFTs. Do you want to learn about NFTs?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" So every Friday morning at 10:30, and it's grown from like 10 people to like 60 people on this call, and I'm learning so much, not just about NFTs, but about like tech in the music space. And it's been really fascinating because I'm learning from people that are actually doing it. And it's different when you're learning from people doing it than when you're just reading about it or studying it?
The way I feel about crypto and NFTs, I feel like almost like a martyr, to be honest. Like, because I remember it being such an annoying topic and being like, what is this thing I have to hear about again? Do you know what I mean? And then to finally understand it and be like, dude, if a third world country thinks this is their salvation, potentially, why would an American who is hopefully trying to retire early like any other genuine person would, do you know? Like
Yeah,
not at least put a little effort into learning this. But my thing, the real thing that gets me is like, why won't people who are big prominent uh folk of the industry talking about this, they'd never use the legitimate words of what we're really gonna do with this. Like, we know the implications, but no one's, it's almost like when you level the playing field, you can't blatantly tell people why, and you can't show them the keys to the door. They have to literally go learn and understand the benefit on the back end and later, and like how to, you know what I mean? And this requires
yeah,
a lot of learning. This is
it does.
extensive education that you really need to do if you care about yourself, because I can't explain to my parents like, hey, money in the bank and inflation and stocks and Roth and percentages, and you can go on forever. You really could, and tell them why something's better, but you're not going to. Like,
No,
it's not. It's kind of like getting jabbed in the arm. It's like you don't want to be super overbearing and make people make their own decisions.
exactly.
But it's like if you want to keep up with the times, you will. It's really strange.
For me, I just had to surround myself with people that are smarter than I am. Um, and I'm going to take you down a little bit of a road. It's going to be like 2 minutes of your life you'll
No,
never
go
get back.
for it. Take me away.
But I'm building a co-working space in Atlanta, and I've got a partner who's very into Bitcoin. And because he's so knowledgeable about it, I trust him. And last September, a year ago, September, um, I was getting ready to buy a Tesla. And I had saved my little $25,000 down payment. And I had saved up for like 6 months, and I was literally getting ready to buy it. And he said to me, "Don't do it. Put the money in Bitcoin instead." And because I trust him, I did it. So September a year ago, I put my little $25,000. I said, "Okay, I'll wait a little while to buy the Tesla, maybe 4 months, 5 months, no big deal. And I put the money into Bitcoin. And now I'm at a point where I can buy a Tesla with the money that I've made with Bitcoin, all because I trusted him. And now this is going to blow your mind. I don't even fucking want a Tesla. Like, I just want the Bitcoin to keep growing and growing and growing. Like, that's
Yeah.
become, it went from me being, gee, I want this car, to, oh my God, I can retire if I just keep trusting Bitcoin. And I trust my friend. And I think it's just, it kind of cosigns what I just said about, you got to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are. I don't want to learn about Bitcoin. I don't have the
For sure.
bandwidth or the time.
For sure.
I want people that do focus on that to educate me.
It's so interesting because now it's like at an all-time low in terms of being searched and Googled, and like all the altcoins are like the new Steam, like different coins are picking up and such.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're totally right. Like the implications of technology, what it's gonna be behind, and why it would be around forever. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a billionaire. I was on a call with, there was a guy that was trying to get a billionaire to invest in his music career. And the guy wanted to do a call with me to ask me, like, okay, what do you do and how does it work? And I don't know how we got on the topic of Bitcoin, but he was telling me that Bitcoin is a scam. And I'm sitting, I didn't argue with him because he's obviously, in terms of finance, smarter than I am. But I'm sitting there listening to this guy, and I had just made over $100,000 in Bitcoin. And he's telling me, yeah, people don't really make money in Bitcoin. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's definitely one of those things where I'm at the point where I'm telling people, I'm like, the only reason I want to work is to buy more crypto. That's literally it.
Yes.
I'm like, I
Yes.
can't make it fast enough to buy it enough.
Yes.
Like,
I was in Paris with one of my team members. She came with me, and I went into the store to buy this pair of shoes, really expensive pair of shoes, and they fit and they were comfortable. And I looked at her and said, I'd rather spend this money on Bitcoin. We came out of the store. I went into my Cash App and bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin
that's
right there.
discipline. That's a discipline though.
But it's just a better, like,
Investment of
yeah,
your
I'll
money.
I'll look cute when I look down at my shoes, but I'd rather have the fucking Bitcoin. Like,
It's
I'm
so
right with you. Like, I would just rather do that.
damn. Yeah, I'll probably think of something else, but let's keep moving. Is it fair to say that consumers in general are waking up like to shittier music, like, and we can tell when something's like real, just nepotism and involved, and
I can, but I've always been able to. I've always been able to. You know what I did wonder, like, somebody in my office, and I don't know if this is accurate yet because I haven't researched it, but Michelle in my office told me that there's a country song, a country artist who is now the #1 streaming artist on Spotify this year. And his numbers blew away whoever was the second one by like millions of streams. And I wondered if that wasn't an indication of
I think I know
fans just,
what you're talking about. I think I know what
I'm
you're
sorry, I
talking about
can't remember his name because I'm not a country fan.
because I
So
remember being
I'm
surprised too.
I'm a little embarrassed that I don't know his name. But, and again, I haven't researched it yet. That's on my list of stuff to do this weekend. But I wondered if that wasn't, because up until now, it's been pop music that's been the highest streamed. This is like the first time that a country artist is taking over the top, 3 streaming numbers. And I'm wondering if that's because the fans are now finding and gravitating towards the stuff that they like. It's no longer about what
Mm,
gets rammed down your throat.
I was gonna ask that. I was gonna say, do you feel that the algorithm could become so good at some point that every next recommendation is your favorite song? Like you're actually just never
Yes.
skip, right? Because
Yeah.
I notice when I'm
Yeah.
on YouTube and I see a thumbnail, I'm like, I'll watch that later. And at the end of the last video I just watched, it's already on. I don't even have to. It's like instantaneous. Already knows me well enough. But
Yeah.
can that happen with music?
I think it can. I think it can happen with music because it's happening with our opinions. Like, I've noticed that if I'm not a Facebook person, so I can't speak to Facebook, but if I'm on Twitter or Instagram, I'm finding that like-minded opinions are coming up in my face all the time.
For sure.
And I'm not hearing opposing opinion anymore
Confirmation bias all day.
all day.
But you're right, Wendy. But you're right.
But it can do that with opinion. I'm sure it can do it with music or
Mm.
videos.
You only shove down the great articles of Travis Scott down my throat for the next year or two.
You know, it's just, it's funny to me. You know, it's as if the algorithm knows how I want to view a certain topic.
Last thought I'll say about Bitcoin, by the way, you can actually be as greedy as you want, and it's still like you're incentivizing and helping everybody else. That's what's crazy. You can literally be as greedy as you want. Yeah.
I never looked at it like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're always helping everyone.
Yeah.
Can you see more brand deals happening instead of label deals in the future?
Yes.
And could a company just specialize in that alone?
Yes.
Wow.
There are companies that specialize in that. There's a company out of Chicago. I can't remember their name, but that's who you go to when you're looking for sponsors. If you're doing a festival, that's their job, is to go find you the sponsors, and then they take a percentage. So yes, I think that labels are,
God, it's got to be so specific though. Do you know what I mean?
it does. You know, this is funny. This is a little bit off topic, but I'm going to bring it back around. During COVID, I read that 70 TikTok influencers got signed to record labels. And I went through the list.
It's a write-off. It was the end of the year.
Yes. Well, it happened like for a year and a half that 70 artists got signed. And Sherry Hugh put together a spreadsheet that listed them all. And I went down that list of 70, and there were only 2 or 3 whose names I recognized, because I'm not a TikTok person, right? But I'm anxious to watch that and see, of those 70, how many actually make money, and then of the ones that make money, which are the ones that catapult into popular culture, like who becomes the next Lady Gaga or the next Ed Sheeran. And I'm wondering if the labels aren't a little bit out of touch, because you can't take an influencer and make them a musician. You can take a musician and make them an influencer.
This comes into the argument. This is the argument. Hold
But
on.
can you do it backwards?
This is the argument. Work ethic or a lot of money. Pick. You have to pick.
Ooh, because it
You
takes.
know, it's. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
infinite. It's infinite money. It's the same result.
Well, I built my career on work ethic, but it was a slow build. But then I've also seen artists that have.
You know what this is, Wendy? I can answer you right now. I know what this is. I can tell you what this is.
Tell me.
They're pissed off they missed out on the Nickelodeon stars.
And now they're jumping on the bandwagon.
For sure. For sure. Ariana Grande is like the biggest mistake ever made. For sure. Everybody before her. Think about that.
Deep.
Yeah.
So do you think there's room for 70 TikTok influencers to become stars?
Yeah, honestly, because
Wow.
TikTok's not leaving. Only because TikTok's not leaving. It keeps scaling.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's nothing else coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see a whole label just for TikTok. Like that's all they do.
How beneficial do you think it was for Donald Trump to announce that he was going to shut TikTok down? I found that really catapulted it at that point in time. Am I wrong?
Into the culture, into the mainstream. Yeah. Yeah, because then I feel like it makes not only your kids talk about it. It's one of those things where but you know how when a song is so appealing, it needs to appeal to the youth and the old?
Right.
That's what that did. Like a whole platform.
Mm.
I can see, but the growth was already surpassing without
Oh,
him.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
it
But
just jumped.
yeah, it probably brought a lot of legal things to light. They might have washed some things under the rug as well, making it an American company. But still wouldn't doubt it. The Chinese will play the long game and they'll get our data one way or another. But moving on.
They my data. I mean, they already know where I am and what I'm doing. So for me to try to shut the door now, like the horse has run out of the barn, it's down the street, and it's in the next county. So try to shut that door is, you
Just
know,
let me sell it to you,
like,
please. Just let me sell you my data. Give me a choice.
right?
Yeah, that's the only reason I don't like Joe Rogan is because he thinks Apple's like the greatest with privacy, and I'm like, you need to stop spreading
Really?
lies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's bullshit.
but
There's nobody
how,
great.
it's all money. Data's money. But how has music publishing changed the most in like the last decade? What would you say?
Um, it's changed the most in the past maybe 3 to 4 years because publishing catalogs used to sell for 1 or 2 times value, and now it's like anywhere from 8 times value to 20 times value.
Talking about hundreds and millions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thoughts on that? That's a good transition to that.
I love that you're asking that because I didn't understand it at first. I had to like call my friends that because I'm very anti-selling publishing, and I had to call my friends that I was watching sell huge catalogs, and I'm like, why are you selling your catalog? And the answer is the money that it was worth was overvalued so high that what they could do with that money as opposed to the publishing was bigger for their children and their children's children and their children's children's children,
Yeah,
what they could do holding on to the publishing. It was so overvalued.
that's insane because there had to be a middle ground as well as the label had to know, okay, well, in this many years, we're making our money times 10 type of.
Now it's times
So
20. Like it's crazy. It's so inflated. It's grossly inflated. And then you've got the bigger companies like Hypnosis where he's forcing the publishing to grow. Like he's actually hiring influencer marketing companies to work old records, old music, so that his catalog will be worth even more. So he doesn't mind paying more for it and working the music because he's forcing the value up. It's
wow.
quite brilliant.
It's kind of like the if people understood the business incentives behind NFTs and just passing it in the trickle. But that's what I mean by like people aren't going to speak of the literal implications. They'll never say that because you speak truth to power, you start educating the community, and it's like, the people that we love end up something happens to them. So with that being said, talk about Dolph a little bit. Just I had a specific question about him, but do you have any immediate thoughts just on young?
I don't. I wasn't close to him. I have some friends that were very close to him. I found out more about him when he passed than I knew about him while he was alive, which is really kind of sad.
Because I think what I was gonna say was in terms of him trying to compare like a Tupac, they kind of feel like they died as martyrs in the sense of helping their community, right?
Yes,
And the other thing is like, how are we ever gonna hold our artists like accountable for their own communities and giving back when every time they do, we just kill them? It's so weird.
it is weird.
It's so weird. It's this weird conundrum, full circle of like,
Yep. Look at
I
Nipsey.
love, yeah, and I'd love to do the same, but like you have to just love it from afar, never even see the things you built, never have the fruit of your labor. Like, okay,
Yeah.
weird. And if you don't, you're a hypocrite, and you never cared.
Right.
I didn't want to die. I'm sorry, but all right. Um, that's another thing is like Mac Miller was a good example because I feel like everyone acts like he's something now when he like was on the sidelines his whole career.
Yeah,
It's
like
so
why did
weird,
you love him while he was alive?
so strange, so strange. Um, how often innovation comes along and stuff. What do you really tell your artists in general? Like, do they ever come to you like for advice? Do you find yourself being like a mom figure often?
All the time, yeah. All the time. I make sure that they're surrounded by the best professionals out there. Um, Most people in the industry don't do that because they're profiting themselves.
Mhm.
For me, I charge a flat fee. So there is no sliding scale, there is no increase in profit. So I'm incentivized to always do what's right rather than take advantage of somebody.
Here's a good question for you.
Mhm.
If you could tell your younger self something, what would you tell yourself?
That's a great question. Pay. You're probably not going to love this answer, but pay more attention to your personal life because I put so much emphasis on my work life. I didn't really pay attention to um, my personal life. I didn't I didn't increase my network of friends. I didn't date the right people. And God, I hope none of them are watching right now because that's thing to say. They're like, damn, I thought you loved me. But I didn't put as much time into building my life as I did building my work life. And
Building other people's lives, you're
or
saying?
building other people's lives. Yes. Like
Yeah.
I've built multimillionaires, but I'm not a multimillionaire. And
Woo.
think about that, that's kind of fucked up, right?
Yeah.
But I should have put more time into building me along with building others.
That's a good one. I think my answer would just be I wish I took myself more serious. That was it.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't take yourself seriously?
I didn't because just I was discouraged and bullied and I was mocked and I think it was a should have been a I I should have taken it as a flattering thing because I was
It is?
learning. Yeah, no, I was learning how to do things like 10, 15 years ago that no one else was doing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
no, I should have just not cared, you know? That's
Yeah,
the crazy. That's why I tell people I'm like I tell kids all the time, don't be ashamed about what you're interested in because
exactly.
in like 10 years you'll think it's cool and everyone else will still be doing it, you know?
Exactly. I
Weird.
struggled in high school, but that never bothered me.
Mm.
Like I was never one to really give a shit about what people thought. And that's a huge
Look,
benefit for
I'll tell
young.
you something personal. I first ripped a beat off the internet, uploaded it, and made a song. I was mocked and like echoed in the halls, but I made $100 in like a week, and I got so anxious because I knew I stole the beat that I pulled the song. You know what I mean? I
Wow.
was so scared because it was happening so fast, and I sold all these shirts at school. Like I sold out immediately. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And I was really freaking out because it was like through iTunes. I didn't know the legal anything around. So I
And
was like, you know
oh,
what?
for get
I
caught.
was like, I'm gonna avoid this. I don't even know the producer. But make out with my 100 and I'm good. I'm
Right.
rich. I'm rich.
Oh,
16. I did it.
come up next.
Yeah. Hey, here's a.
To clear the next beat? Like, did you learn not to do that? Like, did the
Oh, for sure.
fear,
For sure.
so it was worth it?
Yeah, of course. Eventually, you learn about exclusive licensing, and yeah, eventually,
Exactly.
for sure.
You you learn as you grow.
Here's a real weird personal one, but besides like money and people coming out of the woodwork, have you ever noticed like a commonality between how like fame has affected any of the artists you work with?
A commonality.
Yeah, besides it just being like money, everyone wants money because you have something.
Most of the artists that I work with don't do this for the money. Most of the artists that come to me want to make a difference. And it's probably because we're like-minded.
It's
Yeah.
such a good answer. You know why? Because I was
What?
thinking about this. I was like, I could never be a good A&R because I would spend so much time trying to figure out if someone's genuine or not. I'd be like, is this guy really authentic? I don't know. There's something about him. Forever, I'd be that guy.
All,
I'd never make my mind up.
all you have to do is spend time with them to see if they're authentic.
I guess. But if you're from afar and you're social media stalking and being a weirdo, that kind of person,
It would be hard to tell if
yeah,
from afar. You'd have to get to know somebody to see if they're authentic or not.
for sure. And I would never be able to do that kind of
I have
job.
pretty good radar for that.
I feel you.
I have pretty
You
good.
you have to though. You have to.
I do have to because I pull people out of bad deals, so I have to be able to see scumbags. And I have
You're
radar.
like, what do you want? Trying to figure it out.
I have radar. It's funny.
Hey, what are your thoughts on posthumous albums? Because I kind of hate it.
Um, I hate it until it's somebody I really love, and then I want to hear the music. You know, I want to hear more music from them. The selfish side of me wants to hear more. Um,
Because
I don't.
on one end, you're taking care of their family, right?
Yeah,
On
I'm torn on that. And it's funny. There's an artist who passed here in Atlanta called Six Dog, and his manager, when Six Dog passed, and I think he passed by his own hand. I think he committed suicide. And when he passed, his manager said, "That's it. We're pulling all of the music that like all the features that he did for other artists. We're going to pull all that shit because we don't want the art the the world flooded with his music because he passed. And they did put out an album after he passed, but only because his music was releasing like the week after he died, right? So it was already in the works through Interscope. But their plan was to not put any more music into the marketplace. And I didn't really understand that until he explained to me his thinking. And I'm like, oh, that's really noble. Like, you want people to remember him for who he was and where he was at that moment in time. You don't want the music to keep living on the way we've done with Tupac or Elvis Presley or, you know, Prince, anybody that's passed away, where there's a multitude of music coming out. But the selfish side of me, when I really love an artist and they pass, the selfish side of me wants to hear more.
Yeah, because like all my best stuff is unreleased. Let's be real. You
Yeah,
know, how many other people feel like that, you know?
right.
That's crazy.
And I want to know where they were going. Like with Tupac, I'm really glad that music came out after he passed, because if that moment in time had stopped right where he was, people would never have known that he was going to try to unite the East Coast and the West Coast and bring everybody back together, since he was the one that created the rift.
I always wonder what happened to Machiavelli Records in Nevada. They built that studio.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a very nice studio, and I'm just like they always talked about signing somebody, and there's never been another anybody.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because the label was called Euthanasia. It wasn't called Machiavelli Records.
yeah. Mac the Million Dollar Man, I think runs that.
Got it.
Um, who are your OGs? Who did you study?
I studied everybody.
Any
I'm a,
any any
I'm
like
a
books
geek.
off the top?
Say it again.
Any books off the top for music
Yes.
or anything?
Yes. I really love the book Good to Great. It's kind of older now. It's probably 20 years old, but I like that a lot. I read everything that Ray Dalio puts out. I'm a big fan of his writing. I
Those are
love the
good
48
ones.
the Power. I've pretty much read everything that Robert Greene has put out. He had one book that I didn't really care for, about seduction. I didn't really like that book, but pretty much everything else he's written. I read a lot of business books, as you probably
Did
can
you
guess.
read Kevin Lau's book,
I did. Yes.
the blue one where he's a little youngin?
Yes. I I don't
Just
love I don't love autobiographies. I prefer biographies. And this is not a slight, I'm not
yep,
talking about Kevin at all in this,
just in
but I
general.
find that when it comes from somebody's own perspective, you kind of get their vision of themselves instead of a well-rounded vision from all different angles.
It's a good
So
answer.
I prefer biographies where people put in the research and the work to,
I think
get
the
all that.
number one thing that stuck out with me was how like Def Jam was predicting music being in video games like 10 years before.
Yeah,
I thought I was really impressed by that.
yeah,
Like they're putting all their money, they know what's coming,
yeah.
and that's also still going up. Um, let's see. Outdated old heads. This is my topic. Outdated old heads. Okay. I feel like there's been a lot of people in the music industry, not going to say any names, people who have like scammed artists that maybe aren't prevalent anymore, but came up earlier in the industry off doing things that weren't like that hard to do, we'll say, like today. Um, but my point being is like, do you think that there's a lot of people that are still in power that really don't know how to do anything or evolve
Yeah,
past their original initial skill that
yeah,
got them in the door, but they just
absolutely.
like but they just milk their position for what it is, not knowing anything?
Yes, or they've got relationships of people that protect them that are in higher up positions. Like, there's a lot of value in this industry for knowing where the bodies are buried, because then the people above you will protect you and keep you in positions of power. There's somebody that runs a major record label that I think is completely inept, and that person has been in power since before I was in the music business, and I'm on year 30 now. I'm going into my 30th year.
Wow.
You
Um, here's a good question. Uh, 300 Records or 300 Entertainment selling their
know?
label. You know about the cursed conspiracy that it's like everyone that signs the 300, something bad happens.
No,
And
I know
yeah,
that.
like literally, you can just Google every artist and see their track record of how,
Wow.
yeah, it's ridiculous. And their biggest record, which not even to hate, let's not, I'm not gonna lie, like they didn't scale this thing to 70% of what they started it with, and uh, like they've really done well. And Trap Queen was, I think, was their biggest record, Fetty, and we know what just happened to Fetty Wap, right? Your thoughts on this? Is this like, do you get rid of a company because all your artists just can't get their shit together, or is this more of a, yo, we signed over 100 artists, we did our thing, we gonna cash out, we really are culture vultures, like the term that people want to use? Like, what is this really happening?
It's funny because you're talking about 300, but I just thought of Death Row Records. You know, I I I think that throughout history there have been labels where shit just happens. Shit just goes wrong. Should they be defunded or folded because stuff happens to their artists? No. I think the fans decide what music they want to keep listening to. And if you fold a label, you're going to fold all the artists on that label.
I mean, they technically would sell them the catalog, 400 million, I think is what they want.
Yeah, it looks like Warner's going to buy it for 400 million. Um
Still just very strange to me.
it happens all the time though. Like that's not weird to me.
I mean, you switch people out and then the priorities change and
Of
you
course.
get shelved and
Of
your
course.
careers end,
But
possibly.
like Orchard bought Human Resources, Interscope bought Death Row. You know, it's happened throughout history. I'm not saying it's right or wrong,
Hmm.
but labels buy labels all the time. Bad Boy Records was huge in the 90s, and they were owned by Arista, Universal, and then I think Interscope.
It's a big catalog, a bunch of people, a bunch of catalogs.
I mean, shit.
Question. In terms of like market research, I used to use like Next Big Sound and it went away recently.
Yeah,
What do
boo.
you what would you be using in terms to figure out where to take an artist?
I don't use research because it's not as accurate as it needs to be. So I don't use it for that. I use research more for putting together marketing plans, like what the artists that I'm working with, who do they sound like, and then I go and do the research on the artists that they sound like. So that's more what I use research for. But there's chart metric. There's
Ah, yeah,
is it called sound charts, song charts, sound
yeah.
charts?
Sound. Wait, music reports. No, not music reports.
No, not music reports. I think it's called sound charts.
It
Sound,
is. It is. I think you're talking. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
Yep, yep. Correct. Um, Psychology of like how humans think and stuff. You know how we have a fear of missing out with like coins and things like that?
Hmm.
Is there such thing as that with artists? Do we have a fear of missing out?
Yes. Yes. I mean,
How
it's
do you create
human
that?
nature. Like I even noticed it in myself during COVID. Like when everybody had to stay in their house, I was so happy because I got to be an introvert and I got to stay in my house and do things around the house and watch TV because I hadn't really watched TV very much. So I got to like binge watch Law and Order and stuff that my friends had seen, decades ago that I missed out on.
Yeah.
And I realized that as soon as the world came back and people started moving around again, I started moving around again. It wasn't because I like being out and about. It's that I have a fear of missing out. Like I'm great when everybody's locked down, I'm great. But as soon as the world came back up, I had to come back out because I felt like I was missing something. I think that applies to artists, humans. We just have that.
Um, I thought it was hilarious because I was reading a thread the other day talking about like college kids being like, how do I balance a job with school and trying to make music? And people were like, you don't do that. And the funny thing to me is like, well, to me, the thing is like, once you have all the time in the world, you end up being like, I need something to make me hate my life again, to inspire me. So it's like, this is your brain will always find problems. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? there's never an actual solution. You just have to find something you're content with that'll make you miss what you're doing. So my next question being like, how do you think you avoided like not drowning your passions? Because I think one of Gary's things was like you kind of got to work around it and not be super involved in like because you can get burned out when you do the same thing all the time.
True. I think I have so many passions that I've never drowned in one because there's so many. There's so many things I enjoy doing that I can never really get tired of one thing because there's not one thing that I do enough to grow tired of it.
Wow, it's a good answer actually.
I'm so fortunate.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I never saw myself as fortunate until just now. But there's so many things that I enjoy. Like I was talking to a rapper yesterday and I'm like, what do you do when you're not rapping? He said, nothing. I'm always working on music. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, what a boring life to have no interests besides just making music. Like, God,
Do you think it's better to be consistent on one platform or like just less posting but way more quality across all platforms?
I think you have to be on all platforms. I think you have no choice because you're talking about as an artist, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not just a regular person. You've got to be able to reach people wherever they're living. So, for example, I'm always on Instagram. Somebody in my office is always on Twitter. So she sees everything that's happening on Twitter. I see everything that's happening on Instagram. We live in two completely different worlds, like in terms of what we're looking at. So if you want to reach me, you can't just be on Twitter. I'll never see what you're doing.
Hmm.
You've kind of got to be all over the place. I'd rather my clients be half as good on all platforms than really great on just one.
In terms of all positions in the industry, like when it comes to even like event managers, directors, producers, DJs, who's the most undervalued? Who's not being paid the most, in your opinion, that does a lot that we don't see?
I think managers, I can't say they're underpaid, but there's so few really good ones. We have such a void in great management because a great manager can really help somebody grow their career, stay on top, and really branch out into many different streams of income. And in hip hop, we don't have a lot of great managers.
That's interesting because I was actually noticing now they have like music business and event management degrees, but there's not really maybe that does fall into it, management, music business management. There's
Maybe.
also we got 2 minutes left. Okay, we're gonna do the quick rundown where you have like quick either or answers with this 2 minutes. I got
Okay.
you ready for it. Either or. These are branding perspectives. Playlisting or ads.
Ads.
YouTube or Facebook.
YouTube.
The way you look or the way you sound.
Ooh. The way you sound, but I had to think about that.
Constantly unpredictable or expected gimmick.
Expected gimmick.
paying directors or paying for features.
Paying for what? Say it again.
Directors like music videos or paying
Yeah.
for features.
Features. I
Dang.
do.
Always different, but you start the trends or you adapt longevity wise and you ride the waves.
The first one.
Dang. Okay.
You got to
Work
lead the charge and be ahead of the curve in order to be a superstar.
most underrated marketing platform.
Snap.
Wow. Kind of pricey for the ads, but okay. I'll look into it. Jeez. Okay, quick answers. In terms of making money, an infectious melody or a cross-genre hit?
Infectious melody because you want the
Hmm.
repeat streams.
Okay. One thing you wish more artists would do for themselves.
Learn the business.
One thing you'll look back at and remember that you got a head start on before anybody.
Independence.
Ooh, one more. Give me one more answer. Give me another one.
Educating artists.
3 artists everybody emulates today.
Tupac. 3.
Yeah.
Tupac, Master P, and Prince.
You have 10 seconds. 3 artists that inspire you intellectually, not for the music. Quick. 5 seconds.
Ooh,
Just
current
name one.
Nip,
Currency.
Nipsey
Nipsey.